my name's Ruddle, and I'm Head of Public Policy Engagement at Ruddle University. What I'm going to do is just go through our co-created civic mission, what that means, the work we've done so far, how we've actually started our journey on co-creating that mission, the approach we've taken, and a spotlight on one of the key projects, as well as the learning journey and the steps that we are taking, really. So where are we? We are a university in the northeast of Wales, on the map there, which you can see, probably very small. So you've got a map of North Wales in front of you. The pictures are also where I'm from, so I wanted to just give you a little bit of a flavour of me and why I care and do the work I do. I'm a child, a true North Walian, I say. I was brought up in Connaskey, which is near Queen's Ferry on the map, if you can see the map of North Wales, which is very much northeast Wales with estates, as you can see from the picture, highly industrialised. Massive steel works here, steel industry, very dominated very much my upbringing in a way, and almost defined some of my focus on social justice and education and experiences of growing up in the 80s. So and my mum was also from Llanfychan, which is near Bangor, so it's very much on the northwest of Wales, almost just before you get to Anglesey and the bridges that go across to Anglesey. My granddad was a cobbler. The challenges in that part of Wales were rural, coastal, tourism. It was also a time in the 80s when I grew up of a lot of second homes, English people coming in with buying second homes, and there was a huge wave of movement around Welsh language and also Welsh culture being diluted. So in my frame of reference growing up was very much around social justice, campaigning for what's right, equality, and making sure that we have, economic foundations, but actually education is key. And I think the background I've got both in northeast and northwest Wales gives me a really good insight into the challenges in our place of our region of North Wales, which is about a population of about 750,000. We are well placed. I'm exceptionally proud to work for Wrexham Glyndŵr as the top university in the UK for social inclusion. We have our demographic is very much focused, a small cohort of students, about just over 5,500 students, so it is small, but we've also got a significantly high proportion of mature students over 30, and offer a range of really creative programs with our partners, from mental health and well-being through to arts, and we've got incredible programs that make a big difference for all our partners and sectors, but also the communities in which we serve. So I'm really proud of that fact. And but we are, as you can also see, on the border, so we very much talk to the northwest of England as well. So we do, Wrexham is alongside D-side, very much a gateway to North Wales as well, but our spread and reach does cross the whole of North Wales. Civic engagement. So what have we been doing? In the last 2 years of 2017 and 19, we secured a small amount of funding from our Higher Education Funding Council, HEFCU. So the slide that you see in front of you is a lot of logos with lots of different organisations that we've either worked with, alongside, partnered in projects. And I just want to pull out one or two key examples. Really, the civic engagement strategy from the previous 2 years was a really test it, go out and test and work with partners in different ways. Let's engage, let's work in different spaces, and let's explore what our civic mission could be and look like. So one of the biggest things I want to focus on really is the 2025, which is one of the logos on the slide, is the round circle with 2025 in the middle. That is a really interesting social movement that we're part of. A number of partners coming together because they care about something, which really has framed the approach we've taken with our civic mission. And they care about ending tackling avoidable health inequalities by the year 2025, actually ending avoidable health inequalities. And that was born from a number of strategic leaders coming together going, do you know what, on our watch, people on one street as to another street die 13 years younger. That's what the evidence is telling us because of where they live. And that's happening on our watch while we're trying to do our roles as chief executive housing, local authorities. And it was, well, how do we come together to actually really tackle this? Because we know not one organisation alone can do that. And 2025 has been established for the last 5 years, and we have been part of it for the last 3, and that's really been a significant part of our civic mission, how we actually in that space can work with and alongside our partners, focus on the things like mental health and well-being, social prescribing, hospital discharge, hoarding, social isolation and loneliness, food poverty, fuel poverty, all these things that are the root cause of health inequalities and inequalities in its broadest sense. And we have worked in that space and understood that actually what can we bring, what are our assets to help enable some of this work. And we developed a leadership programme to capture the essence of the way we worked in 2025, which was very much start with the willing, understand the collective challenge, just do teams set up around that. So we've really, as a university, worked and integrated with the informal partnership that it is, and it's had significant impact across our region. And there's a number of other projects that we've worked on which would take me a long time, but we're really proud of the work we've done with lots of partners across the board, including the Future Generations Commissioner for Wales, which is key legislation in Wales, which has enabled a lot of the work that we're trying to do. So moving forward, talking about collective challenges, we all know we're in a situation of dealing with and still dealing with COVID and the challenges that's presented to all sectors and all across society and indeed the world. And I think this slide really illustrates for me our approach with the civic mission, the learning we've had to date with all the partners in the work we've done previously has allowed us to know that actually we all have to work on understanding the common collective challenge together, what that mission is, and then it allows us to move forward and develop an infrastructure and enable those projects and communities and leaders to work together on the solutions. But if we don't fundamentally understand the challenge and get lost in some of the quick fix solutions like the emergency of trying to deal with COVID, then actually we lose sight of the root causes and the biggest issues that we've got coming our way. And I think the Future Generations Act has got 5 ways of working, and they're very much at the heart of how we take forward our co-created civic mission. And again, the slide illustrates how we need to dig deeper, and it's a number of levels that if you want to address mental health, we need to dig deeper. And it's not just about scratching the surface and changing a little bit of the medical model, or changing a little bit of the way that we have a paternal medical model that forces people through a GP system. But actually, it's things that we know like poverty, injustice, inequality, discrimination, adverse childhood experiences, all significantly contribute to the mental health issue we've got. So actually, you know, you could ask yourself, is the solution putting more funding into mental health? And to a part, yes, that is the answer. But actually, we need to understand the whole wicked issues that are the cause of those mental health issues. And if we don't unlock them and change the system to address them, then actually we'll always be trying to just pump more money into the firefighting side of it and the solutions that potentially are not even really tackling the root causes of the challenges we're faced. And the reason I've got these slides is that for me, they really illustrate what we're trying to do in the university and how we've set about really co-creating and really understanding our space, our place, and what we can do to enable action collectively around a big challenge that we've got. So this moves us forward. So the next slide is about, it sets out our mission to help and also our aim to be useful with our colleagues. So it's a framework. Now, what we did with this, the work we'd done in the previous 2 years was really testing and exploring what we could do, and being creative and you know, trusting that we were working in the right way and learning from all those projects we worked on. And what we wanted to do is say, actually, we think our collective mission, our civic mission, is bigger, and it allowed us the reflections of where we'd worked with partners was some of the root causes of the challenges we're facing in public services was grounded in social inequality. So we developed a framework, which is this in front of you, which reflects our commitment and our focus to actually then engage in conversations with leaders. So with 42 leaders across the region, we invited them, sent out the framework and said, we're in this for the long haul, being quite big and bold. We want to talk to you, come and have a conversation with us. And it was enabled and facilitated by an independent party that works with us in the university, and is a visiting industrial fellow, but is an expert in systems leadership. So he could quite objectively have a brief conversation one-to-one with key leaders from health, public health, local authorities, CVCs, the third sector organisations, through to the Arts Council, through to police, fire, and private sector representatives as well. So we asked a set of questions, and we also set out that we think our role is to be really useful in co-creating, innovating, testing and delivering and enabling collective action around 3 key priorities. Because like with anything, you could do lots of different things, and the work I'd done previously, we did lots of different projects, and actually we wanted to try and focus on what we knew was the real sort of issues of our time, and the issues that leaders are grappling with. And we ask key questions around, what do you understand by community? How can we enable you and your organisations to keep well, and also the communities in which we serve? And also, how can we really work in a whole systems way, enabling and supporting that innovation around that focus? So it allowed us to test a framework that we thought is actually, you know what, pull it apart, ask some questions, go in there with curiosity and humility to really engage leaders in a conversation, not that we know, and actually engage leaders in all different sectors. And also we're on a journey to engage communities in the same work as well, to listen to stories that will also shape our civic mission approach as we go forward. The next slide really looks at how we can do that. So our capacity and our ability to enable that work to happen. And what we've set out here is a double D diagram designed by the Design Council, which means where we can enable collective action around discovering what the issue is, exploring the problem, defining what that problem is, developing solutions, and then delivering prototypes and learning from that and collecting it back. This is the vehicle, and our project is called the North Wales Public Service Lab, which is where we think we can bring all these projects that we've worked together on previously together in one space, intellectually and a physical space, to bring projects, communities, people together to explore that approach to big challenges like trauma-informed communities, like social isolation and loneliness, like some of the poverty and inequality projects we're working on with the public service boards. Public service boards are set up in Wales by the Future Generations Act, and it's legislation in Wales that is set out, and this is the whole outcome that we're trying to achieve. So on the slide, you can see a wheel that's made up of 7 different areas of well-being, and also the Sustainable Development Goals logo. The Sustainable Development Goals are 17 of them that are relevant to the whole of the world, and in Wales we distilled that down and developed that into legislation called the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. And within that there's 7 wellbeing goals, and we are trying to ensure we drive and enable collective action to really address and respond to those areas of prosperous communities, resilience, healthier Wales, more equal, cohesive communities, a vibrant culture and thriving Welsh language, and being globally responsible. And they're very much at the heart of what we do. The outcomes as well and the way we work as a university in this co-created approach is also to work in 5 new ways, which is set out in the legislation. And the vehicle for delivering that is through the public service boards, which is a partnership of lots of partners coming together to develop wellbeing plans to address and respond to those. And all 44 public sector organisations across Wales have to demonstrate how they're doing that. And one of our roles we see in our university is to enable that work to happen in our region in North Wales. The 5 ways of working which are really relevant here are long-term, prevent, collaborate, integrate and involve. All are really, really fundamentally at the heart of any co-created approach that listens to communities and leaders in a strata way. So one's not more important than another, but you listen to them all actively and you change and enable the way you work. Again, this slide represents the bigger wheel, the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act 7 wellbeing goals, and also flags that we responded to the other children's commissioners, the Older People's Commissioner as well, a Future Generations Commissioner, which we are unique in the world to have that. And this legislation, we don't have to respond to it as a university. The Higher Education Funding Council does, but the difference is we choose to respond to this, and I think that's the difference with what we're doing. And also we can then enable and support our partners and communities in the same way to make our space and place better and for everyone that lives in North Wales. And I think what I really like about, there's a quote that says, what Wales does today, the world will be doing tomorrow. And I think there is really something special in that. But also I'm a keen believer in that actions speak louder than words at times. So there's a space and place for both. So as we move forward, we are now giving shape and action to our co-created civic mission. One of the things I should say is that we did an initial round of conversations. And then we also are going back out now in November with, you said we did, we've taken all the leaders that engage with us in the conversations back in May and June of this year. We're going back out and we're having a conversation cafe to really shape the project, so the approach and the infrastructure we put into place to enable action collectively around that mission. And these are the projects that I'm going to present now, just briefly, to give you a flavour of what that feels like, how tangible, and the projects we'll be working on. So I may have mentioned previously, we know social inequality cannot be addressed by one organisation alone or by one government. It has to be an approach that we take as a collective. And one of the ways that we think we can enable that to happen is with our partners in 2025, which I mentioned previously, and our partners in the public service boards across the region, bringing people together in these public service labs, which enables us to bring our assets, our insight, the research and the evidence that allow us to shape the evidence that's needed from the projects that do happen, to allow us then change policy and evidence the approach that we take. And as we know, we're trying to enable organisations to look left and right and not be siloed in the linear structures of health dealing with health issues, public health dealing with public health issues. If anything's taught us in the recent COVID crisis is it's a responsibility of all of us in all sectors working together in a whole systems way is how we achieve change. I think one of the things I really love about systems thinking and systems theory and leadership is that actually if you're about change, whatever sector, whatever level you're in, you're a systems leader. And we've developed an education programme that really enables that to happen. And one of the key elements to this project is we have educated a number of systems leaders from across a range of sectors, particularly housing, local authority, third sector. And we're bringing those together as a community of systems leaders and enabling those people with real innovation, passion, and they choose to do these projects if it's part of their remit. and bring them together into working with projects that they may never have previously been able to access. Like the Public Service Board is something that exists as a level, a governance structure, and what we're enabling is subgroups to open them up for other leaders and other sectors to get involved in the creative way that we develop and move towards building community resilience. Community resilience is also another focus for us, and one of the vehicles we're enabling that is through a children's university. We're developing the first children's university in Wales for a number of years. And again, this has come from partners, and this is really enabling aspiration, additional extracurricular learning, which will support a number of things in Wales, like the new curriculum 2022, which is coming in, and engaging young people and supporting mental health challenges, physical literacy, and supporting teachers in the roles that they've got, as well as enabling young people to access learning equitably across the region, from museums to science to arts, and it will really be a vehicle that we can shape to address our very unique regional challenges as we have. The tree there that is represented, so on this slide is the logo of Children's University and a tree. And the tree really represents some of the work we're doing with the Public Service Boards, which, as I've mentioned, are a partnership of lots of partners coming together, not usually working together really, to develop wellbeing plans. Now that's part, again, the legislation we've just explained. Some of the work we're doing is developing collaborative community resilience plans. So where the gaps are, what's going on out there, how do we work together in a whole systems way? So we're really working with public service boards to create those plans and support them. And then a final piece of a project around community resilience is we've worked with the Together for Mental Health strategy in North Wales, and we're part of, again, a regional, sub-regional approach. And we've worked with the Transformation Fund from Welsh Government and the local health board, Betsy Cadwaladr University Health Board. And we are working with 3 communities in really in-depth way, engaging in public narrative, understanding and learning about what the stories are, what are people's passions, what breaks their heart, what things are they really struggling with in their communities. And we're working with 3 distinct communities, working with people that live and work in those areas, helping them understand whole systems, but also developing their stories, which will help shape the future of how we create and commission public services for the future, particularly around mental health, but in its broadest sense around all elements that affect people in communities and society. So there are 3 key projects that we're working on in that space with a multitude of partners. The next slide is really about two core projects here, really, and this slide's quite a busy slide, but it really it's a slide and animation with lots of captions on it about a community of practice and what that means and how it works, enabling and supporting people from all different sectors. Now, a community of practice we've worked on for the last 3 years with, again, Betsy Cadwaladr, our health board. We lead it with the health board, and we lead a community practice for social prescribing, which is a new model of health and wellbeing, focusing on a national wellness system. And we bring practitioners together to learn from each other. We focus on key things like funding, evidence, shaping policy and education, and how we can really enable the collectiveness of bringing a community together that are working in the same way. This is again about whole systems change, and we share learning, but we also use it as an opportunity to get collective understanding of social prescribing, what it is. And there's brilliant models going on across the region, but how do we share that? And it's not saying that one model of social prescribing, which enables people to plug into community and social assets rather than seeing their GP at every point if they need help or support, and engage with the third sector initially, or community navigators or community agents in their GP's practice that will allow them to have support that they need that may not be clinical. So we are about trying to understand what that is and how we can facilitate and enable that in different communities. Sharing the learning is crucial within this, and also ensuring there's an education programme that underpins that thinking and research as well. So as part of that, we're also part of the Wales School for Social Prescribing as well. And then finally, another project that we're really interested in is becoming, and we're working on in partnership with the National ACEs Hub, Adverse Childhood Experiences, is really how we're moving to be the first trauma-informed university in the UK, and actually working with partners to say, well, what does that mean and look like across our partners in housing in other organisations, and how do we move towards being a kinder, compassionate and more resilient and safer Wales. And that's what we're really focused on with partners in the adverse childhood experiences. So this is trauma and adverse childhood experience. What it means is we all experience trauma. We've all had a collective experience of COVID at the moment, which is a global trauma that people have experienced in different ways. Adverse childhood experiences is research that says that if we experience trauma in childhood, it can have an impact on us later in life, in the life choices, in the way that our brains develop, in the way that we are as beings. And there's key principles around power, compassion, empowerment, compassion, trust, safety, and collaboration that are really fundamental to that. And we're working with the National ACEs Hub in Wales as a partner to really enable that approach. We are going to be the first pilot university in the UK to pilot this approach, and we're taking a step-by-step approach with the ACEs Hub, looking at preparedness and doing an audit with academic staff and students, and then working wider with our partners to say, well, actually, we're not an island. How do we enable this approach that we're taking to become, kinder, compassionate, safe and more resilient university, enable our communities to have the same journey? So we're working alongside a partner in housing who's taking the same steps, and also our wider partners in 2025 around how we do work together in a new way to across a sub-region or the whole region, piloting different approaches to enabling kindness and compassion in society. Then this is the ambition, really, just to flagging it. I would also say that there is a video case study that we've done with our partners and all the people we're working with on this project. So I would urge you to have a look at that if you're more interested in this approach. But I just really wanted to put a spotlight on a really important project for the university, and one that we want to share. So we are hoping to do a learning log as we go along. That's like a podcast that's accessible and for all universities, but educational settings and organisations to engage with. And we will develop and enable the process as we go along. So that's that's just that. Then it's just finally bringing it together. Systemic problems like inequality, like social inequality, like our massive focus on our civic mission, it needs systemic solutions. It needs us to work together and requires us to work together in different ways, in a co-created way. And I think that's where uniquely we are taking those step journeys. And the next conversation cafes, the next discussions and conversations with communities will all shape and change our civic mission, and it will evolve as we go along. So it's not set in stone. We are not consulting with the usual suspects and the key leaders only, or just the key entities. We are actually really digging into different levels to understand what people's challenges are and how we can take how we can support and enable action against that and deliver support. One of the key things we do is working on the right language, social movement for change, and a shared narrative. Everybody loves stories, and we're all humans, and from childhood we have stories told to us, and actually how understanding other stories and their viewpoints is crucial for us to understand actually how we take that forward. And social movements are very much part of Marshall Gantz's, who's a professor in Harvard, where his approach to the social movements around the civil rights movement. And so it's really about bringing people together who care about things, not because there's funding or there's opportunity, actually saying, well, what is it we care about and how do we take this forward? And it's then reframing the question and the discussions, which I think has really helped with our conversations with leaders. We are a small country in Wales, we're a small region in North Wales, and we can do brave and bold things, and that's certainly what we're doing. And you know, we've got a brilliant leadership team at the university that are really supportive and backing and championing this approach, which again is really crucial. And I see that one of the biggest things that we need to be doing is the old power and new power. So old power being perhaps the more linear structures of accountability that do go up and down. The new power that's coming in around social movements, bringing different voices in, citizens' voices in, that will constantly shape and evolve. Actually, that way of working and changing the system to suit and support others in quite an agile way is very different from perhaps previous ways of working. It's not saying one's better than other, because there's a space and place for both. I think our job is to really provide leadership and understanding of how they integrate together, and how, you know, the accountability structures, the up and down linear structures that need to be there in times for legal purposes, and then the new ways of working, how they work together to actually build a new future and address some of these biggest challenges that we've got. So just in summary, really, I was going to have a discussion at this point, but I think probably if you're listening to this video, we will not be able to do that. It's really that we are on a journey. We are certainly, it's not about the destination for us. It's about the journey and how we keep evolving and changing. And actually the destination may change when we get there, so you've just got to be agile enough to respond to it. And I think it's really key to go with humility, and that's not about us undervaluing our own abilities, but actually going in with curiosity and saying, well, actually we don't know the answers to some of this stuff, but you may. What's your challenge, what's ours? And actually it frames the conversation and the questions you ask very, very differently then. The other thing that when we built the first 2 years of you know, really working in different projects in different ways, built a trust and built a strong network in actually we are working in a different way, and all the projects and relationships go at the speed of trust. And that can take a long time to build up, particularly if there's been previous issues or challenges from a university. So that's a really important sort of learning point for us. I think the other thing to start is you have to start somewhere and you have to do something. And I think for us, it was saying, this is what we think our mission is. This is a framework. Let's pull it apart and let's put it back together. Let's create it together. And I think the next step is the approach that we developed to the projects we've just talked about now, is going back to say, we've secured some funding from HEFQ through the Research Wales Innovation Fund. This is the shape we're taking because all our partners are working with us, help shape them. For those that don't know, be involved and let's shape it together. So I think it's very much about starting somewhere, doing something, and without going in there, not with a fait accompli, but something that can be pulled apart and picked back together, which I think is really important. The next point is really a fundamental for me, is that we work in the way we work because we want to be driven by our challenges of our society in North Wales, North East Wales and North Wales, and by the problem, not because we're chasing funding, because I think that's short-sighted. It's understandable because the way that universities are structured, but I think that's where some of the challenges come from, and the attrition between chasing the funding or actually trying to really work together to understand the challenge that allows us to get the funding. So it's a very different way of driving your approach, and can also change the way that you engage with people. I think the next point for me is really, really important as well, is that we are engaging in stratas, and because we have to start somewhere and do something, we started with leaders with this framework, but we will constantly be checking and balancing all of that approach and all these projects we develop with the community voices, from young people through to the conversations we're having with those distinct 3 communities, through to working with the public service boards and making sure that their voices are heard. So I think it's seeing things as stratas, as layers. Not one is more important than other, but they will inform each other, and all of them will be able to shape the way that we will evolve our civic mission. And I think you have to be brave enough to sort of adapt and change and evolve your civic mission to be responsive, because the challenges, as we know in the last 9 months, have absolutely changed day to day, and we need to be alive to that and responsive to that, because otherwise we will be stuck and we will never be able to create the right solutions for some of these big challenges. And I think finally, it's about being an enabler and facilitator. Not one organisation alone can tackle that big challenge that we're working on, but actually some can enable us, we can enable them, and together we can achieve something. And I think as long as we've got a road to go on and a direction, then actually the destination may change as we go along on that road, and we may turn left and right. But if we're enabling facilitators of all of this and all this thinking coming in from all these different directions, then actually, again, you're bringing together lots of different voices, unheard voices, hidden voices, as well as the leaders' voices to set that direction and to resource some of it. Then actually it's a really, really good space to be an enabler of us working together. Because as I say, we can't tackle that big challenge alone, and you have to be just big and bold and brave sometimes. And I think that's really what we've done at the university. I think just finally, one of the questions we would ask is, do you recognise this? Could you apply this in your space? You know, do you go to the usual suspects, or are you really digging into, and are you doing with communities or alongside? And I think they're really challenging questions to ask yourself, and it's holding that mirror up. You know, are you there for the passion or the funding? And again, it's okay to be there for the funding as well, as long as it achieves improvements against positive improvements against what we're all trying to do. Otherwise, we're all still going to be stuck in our silos and never being able to unlock these challenges. Now we left for our kids and our grandchildren's generation, and for me, that's not okay, and we need to do something about it. And that is certainly what we're trying to drive and chase in the university with our partners.